Hey, welcome back to the show. Please do not forget to check out our YouTube channel for more episodes of Right on the Money, where we discuss financial topics with advisors and fiduciaries right there in your area. Now, our guest today has been Dan Cronin, founder of Lifestyle Wealth Management. And Dan, we've been talking about this crazy world that you're an expert in, and that is the federal employee retirement system, FERS, right? If I'm picking that up right. In this segment, we're going to talk about addressing the needs of surviving spouses, special considerations. But I want to talk to you about something you had mentioned before, which was a procedure you call the FERS Plus procedure.
Yep.
What do we got going on?
So the FERS Plus procedure is freshly trademarked. We're excited about that. And it's really a systematic, step-by-step process and procedure that we follow with our federal clients to walk them through all of their federal benefits. Whether they need it or not, we always conclude with a plan for them so that when they get to that pinnacle event of their retirement application, they know with certainty and confidence that that's the benefit that they need, reduced or omitted and dropped.
I like it. I keep thinking, as we've been having this conversation and talking off camera, that if I am a federal employee, I want to be talking to somebody who this is like the back of their hand.
Yep.
And you're dropping acronyms, and it literally is like it's
another world.
It is another world that you know very, very well. Speaking of unique challenges and unique situations for federal employees, let's talk about the options that are available and considerations that need to be taken into account for spouses.
Yep. So there's a program or a benefit called the SBP, Surviving Spousal Benefit Plan. And what that is basically a life insurance policy on the Fed for the spouse. And when the Fed dies, the spouse gets income or they don't.
Sounds easy enough.
Simple enough, but there's three options: 0% survivor benefit, 50%, or 25%. And there's a cost, like insurance, right? So it's a benefit that the Fed pays for as soon as they retire, not during their working years, but at retirement. And it's also co-joined with the federal employee health benefits.
So I asked, okay,
to make matters even worse.
I got to say this back to you. So you're saying that if I'm a federal employee and I'm married and I'm going to retire and I'm looking at my income choices, I have to make a decision that affects the amount I get monthly, but it affects then also what happens after I'm alive?
Absolutely. And it also affects whether your spouse has access to FEHB when you pass.
Health insurance.
Health insurance. So so to summarize, if you're the Fed and you want your spouse to have health benefits long after you pass, you have to enroll in the SBP program.
So I have to make a decision as I'm getting ready. So for my wife, Paula, I'd have to decide now what's going to happen for her.
When you fill out your retirement application, that's that deciding factor event.
So how does my wife in this situation, how does FERS provide for that surviving spouse? And then what other options? Are there other options? Any tripping things I could trip over here?
Absolutely. So there's a cost for it, right? And it's just reduced from the Fed's monthly pension. So if you do the 50%, so they call it the full survivor benefit, but it's half of what the Fed's pension is. So leave it to the government to throw little curveballs like that. And then the partial survivor benefit is 25%. So let's just say for easy math, you have $1,000 per month federal pension.
Okay.
You want your spouse to have the full survivor benefit. Well, they're going to get $500 when you pass, or $250 when you pass, right? But there's also the 0% option. So if you say, no, I don't want my wife, spouse, partner to have any money, you have an option there. And some people do that. Not common, but if there's another plan in place, or let's say there's military benefits, or the spouse is also a Fed, or there's other better health plan, that's an option there. So it's really about how do we save the Fed money and give them confidence that that survivor spousal benefit is enough for both of them, even when the Fed passes away.
I've got to tell you, so as you're saying this, one of the things I can think of right now, that if you're a federal employee, you do need to work with somebody. You need to reach out to Dan, because otherwise, I bet this happens all the time. Well, Bob retired last year and he did this, and he said that's the way to go.
We call it the water cooler talk.
The water cooler talk.
Right. And it's the person at work who's the know-it-all. Right. And if you can't think of anyone at work, it might be you. So there's all these complex benefits and decisions you have to make on an application that's very difficult to navigate and complete. And if you don't fill it out correctly, your retirement gets deferred and they basically hold on to your money for longer.
I imagine the forms are probably really simple and clear.
So simple. They are extremely complex. There's double negatives in there. There's forms that there's no instructions on whether that box applies to you. Yeah. And we have a lot of HR clients. And if you're HR, you're safe with us, right? But HR isn't licensed to provide counsel or recommendations to the feds because they're not licensed financial advisors. So whether you work with us or someone else, make sure that they have that designation or the expertise and the experience to help you navigate. They're also a fiduciary, and they also know how all of your financials are intertwined with your federal benefits.
You know, the word fiduciary gets tossed out there a lot.
All the time.
Can you define it for us?
So it's the legal obligation that myself and my team, that we put above our clients, right? We don't consider ourselves here. We're unbiased advisors. Whether you like a plan or not, that's up to you.
And
right?
and it's a legal responsibility.
Absolutely.
Too. That's
a legal,
big deal.
Legal part. And HR doesn't have that responsibility, and they don't want it.
Yeah, I can imagine that would be a lot of pressure.
So we work with a lot of HR personnel to offer education and workshops, and we put on these workshops monthly and quarterly for feds to keep that education going and to bust the myths and stay on top of all the changes.
Get the answers out there. I'll tell you what, let me put you on the spot here. Any chance you have a story or maybe an example of how a little proactive planning helped a surviving spouse navigate the financial difficulties?
I got a lot of stories. One that we see, so Dennis, in this industry, we see patterns. There's lots of pattern recognition that us advisors go through. And we see, and we study successful clients and federal employees. So we see the patterns of what did they do early on, mid-career, late career, to get them to where they wanted to go. And what was the differentiating factor that they did versus some of the peers that ran out of money or messed up on some benefits or didn't pass any money correctly or fill in the blank, right? Yeah. So a great story that I think of is the Surviving Benefit Program. There's a strategy that we implement called Pension Max using life insurance. And it's multifaceted, but the simple way is we help the Fed dial in their surviving benefit plan. They filled it out on the application at 25%. We also created a hybrid strategy because the Fed wanted to have their spouse on the FEHB program and an income for life, but they didn't want to pay for the full amount. Because if and when the Fed dies at any time, all that money that goes into the surviving benefit program passes to the spouse. But if the inverse happens, let's say the spouse passes away late in retirement first, where does all that money go that the Fed paid into the surviving benefit program? The government's, not a cloud, it's the government's coffers cloud, right? So all that money was invested in the government's program and the spouse passes. And the only way to recoup those dollars is to remarry, which some people can pull off in their 90s or 80s, but it's very difficult, right? And there's all these fine print details, but we basically optimized their federal benefits program, gave the spouse lifetime FEHB access, and used a life insurance policy to increase the coverage and create tax-free dollars and a level income for life.
I love it. So it is clear. I love having conversations with people that are clearly masters of what they're talking about. And it's clear to me that if you're a federal employee and you work anywhere, you're virtual, right? So any agency, anywhere, anytime, that you need to talk to an expert. What advice would you give? So that we'll land this plane here, but what advice would you give to federal employees to make sure that they're on the right path?
Yeah. So knowing where you are now and where you've been is a great indicator of future success as well. So having a budget dialed in, like that's a free thing that you don't need to hire anyone for.
Sure.
You can literally track where the dollars have been and where they're going, because a lot of time we help our clients be more efficient with the dollars that are coming in, right? If you have $1,000 a month coming in or $10,000 coming per month, you want to be efficient with each of those dollars. And job descriptions of those dollars change over time. So we want to be efficient with the dollars coming in, learn where we can save money, and be proactive. HR is on your side, but they're not licensed to give you advice. So seek out us or a financial professional that specializes in these federal benefits, and that's a fiduciary and that knows how to navigate both the federal and the private sector options, because we have tons of strategies and alternatives for feds that they can implement now at early, federal career, mid-career, and late. And there's lots of things that only increase in price the longer you wait. So if you know we're going to drop a benefit, let's get it done with now so that you pay the lowest price for it.
I love it. Dan, thank you. Thank you so much for being on the show. Folks, if you're out there, if you're a federal employee, you know a federal employee, maybe you love a federal employee, they need to see this show. They also need to reach out and talk to Dan. So Dan, your contact information is right across the bottom. Thanks for being on the show. Great conversation.
Thanks for
we'll
having me.
have you back. And for everybody else, don't forget, you can watch full Right on the Money show episodes on our official YouTube channel. You can catch us at rightonthemoneyshow.com. That's the spot where you can get up-to-date financial news and insights from the top insurance and financial professionals in your area. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.